Welcome to the Retirement Wealth Podcast, where we help you navigate the journey towards a fulfilling retirement. Today, we're diving into something that's often overlooked but really important: how to protect your assets from lawsuits in retirement.
Yeah, it's a topic that can feel a bit daunting, but it's crucial to understand, especially as you build your nest egg and look to enjoy those golden years.
Absolutely. I mean, no one wants to think about legal troubles, right? But knowing how to safeguard what you've worked so hard for, well, it's empowering.
Exactly. We'll be discussing strategies like asset protection trusts, the importance of insurance, and how to structure your assets in a way that minimizes risk.
And we'll also touch on the role of estate planning in this whole process, as it can be a key component in protecting your legacy.
Plus, we'll address some common misconceptions about lawsuits in retirement. It's really about being proactive rather than reactive.
Right. So whether you're still in the planning stages or already enjoying retirement, this episode will give you valuable insights to help secure your financial future.
Let's jump right in.
Yeah, let's get started. What's the first thing we should know about protecting our assets?
So Emily, when we think about protecting assets from lawsuits in retirement, it really hits home for a lot of people right now. I mean, with everything happening in the world, there's a heightened sense of vulnerability, right?
Absolutely. I think a lot of folks are feeling that pressure, especially with inflation creeping up and the market being so unpredictable. It makes planning for the future feel a bit, daunting?
Exactly. And let's not forget about healthcare costs. They seem to rise every year, and for retirees, that can be a heavy burden. What if someone faced a lawsuit during such a vulnerable time?
Right. I had a conversation with a retiree, let's call him Tom, who had worked hard all his life, saved diligently, and was finally enjoying his retirement. But then he got sued over a minor car accident, and it turned his world upside down.
Wow, that's a tough spot. I mean, just think about the stress it caused him, not to mention the financial implications. If he had better asset protection strategies in place, he might not have had to worry so much.
Exactly. It's stories like Tom's that really highlight why planning isn't just about accumulating wealth, but also about safeguarding it. With the rising cost of living, a lot of people are feeling the pinch.
Yeah, and with Social Security changes on the horizon, there's uncertainty around how much people can rely on it in the future. Having a solid plan to protect what they've worked for seems more crucial than ever.
Definitely. And then there's the emotional side of it too. Knowing that you're secure can make a huge difference in your peace of mind. It's about enjoying retirement without that constant worry hanging over your head.
Right. Just imagine, you finally reach that golden age of retirement, and instead of spending time with family or traveling, you're consumed by legal battles or financial fears. That's not what anyone wants.
I know. And it's not just about the immediate threats either. We should think about legacy planning, right? Many retirees want to leave something behind for their kids or grandkids. But if their assets aren't protected, that could all be at risk.
Exactly. It's important to consider how current economic trends can affect not just personal finances, but also the financial future of one's family. A lawsuit can wipe out savings that were meant for the next generation, which is heartbreaking.
And let's not forget about the unpredictability we're seeing in markets. One day the stock market is up, and the next day, it's down. If someone's retirement savings are heavily invested in the stock market, that can create even more anxiety.
Yeah, and in times of market volatility, people often panic and make hasty decisions that could jeopardize their long-term financial health. So having a cushion or a strategy in place can help alleviate that stress.
For sure. I also think about how retirees are looking for tax efficiency now more than ever. With potential tax hikes on the horizon, protecting assets from legal claims while also being tax efficient is a balancing act.
You hit the nail on the head. People want to keep as much of their money as possible. If they have to pay taxes on assets that are also vulnerable to lawsuits, that just compounds the issue.
So, David, it sounds like there are some real-life examples and scenarios that clearly show the urgency of this topic. It's not just about being financially savvy. It's about living life freely without the weight of worry.
Absolutely, Emily. And it's about taking proactive steps now, rather than waiting until it's too late. The right strategies can really give retirees that peace of mind they deserve.
Right. And I think it's important for listeners to recognize that these concerns are valid, and they're not alone in feeling this way.
Exactly. Everyone's navigating similar challenges in this current landscape. And with the right planning, they can better protect their assets and ensure their retirement years are truly enjoyable.
So let's dive into some core strategies that can help listeners safeguard their wealth.
So, Emily, when we talk about protecting assets from lawsuits in retirement, one of the first things that comes to mind is the importance of diversification.
Absolutely, David. Diversification is like spreading your risk across different investments, right? It can help shield you from significant losses if one area of your portfolio takes a hit.
Exactly. A common rule of thumb is to maintain a portfolio that's about 70% in stocks and 30% in bonds. As you approach retirement, this balance can help you grow your assets while also providing some stability during market downturns.
And that's particularly crucial because, when you're retired, you can't afford to lose a chunk of your savings. So what about tax-advantaged accounts? How do they fit into asset protection?
Great question. Accounts like 401ks and IRAs have certain protections against creditors. For example, in many states, your 401k is protected from lawsuits, which is a huge advantage. It allows you to grow your retirement savings without as much worry about losing them.
And then there's the Roth IRA, right? I love that one. Because not only do you get tax-free growth, but when you withdraw funds in retirement, those withdrawals are also tax-free. That can be a big deal for income planning.
Definitely. Plus, with Roth IRAs, there's no required minimum distribution or RMD during your lifetime, which means you can let that money grow longer if you don't need it right away. That can really help in a lawsuit situation as well, since you're not forced to take out funds that could be exposed.
Speaking of RMDs, what's the deal with them? I know they kick in at age 73 now, but how do they affect your withdrawal strategy?
Right. RMDs can be tricky because they require you to withdraw a certain amount each year from your traditional retirement accounts like your 401k and traditional IRA. If you're not careful, those withdrawals can bump you into a higher tax bracket, which can reduce your overall retirement income.
So if someone's not planning for that, they could end up with a hefty tax bill?
Exactly. That's where strategies like the bucket approach can come into play. You allocate your assets into different buckets based on when you'll need the money. For example, you might have a short-term bucket with cash for the first few years of retirement, a medium-term bucket with bonds for the next 5 to 10 years, and a long-term bucket with stocks for growth.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a great way to manage cash flow while also being mindful of taxes and market fluctuations.
Right, and it can help protect your assets from being too vulnerable during market downturns. Plus, it helps create a more predictable income stream, which is really comforting for retirees.
And speaking of income streams, let's not forget about Social Security optimization. What tips do you have for that?
Social Security can be a game changer. The age at which you decide to start taking benefits can significantly impact your monthly income. Delaying benefits until age 70 can increase your monthly payment by as much as 76% compared to taking them at 62.
Wow, that's a huge difference. It's like a guaranteed return on investment, isn't it?
Absolutely, and it's one of the safest investments you can make. Just remember, once you start taking those benefits, you can't go back. It's crucial to consider your other income sources and your health status when making that decision.
And how does this tie back into asset protection?
Well, by maximizing Social Security benefits, you can reduce the amount you need to withdraw from your other accounts, which can help preserve your assets from potential lawsuits. It's all about creating a sustainable income plan.
Got it. And what about real estate? I know many people consider it a solid investment, but how does it play into asset protection?
Real estate can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's generally a good long-term investment, and in many states, the equity in your primary residence is protected from creditors. On the other hand, rental properties can expose you to liability if someone gets injured on your property.
So a good strategy could be to keep your primary residence protected while being cautious with any rental properties?
Exactly. And you might also consider using an LLC to own rental properties. This can provide an additional layer of protection against personal liability.
That's a smart move. And what about annuities? I know they can be a bit complicated, but do they have a place in asset protection?
They can, yes. Certain types of annuities may be protected from creditors, depending on the state. Annuities can also provide a steady income stream, which can be really beneficial in retirement.
It sounds like there are so many pieces to consider when planning for retirement and protecting your assets.
There really are, and that's why it's crucial to have a comprehensive plan. Regularly reviewing your asset allocation is key, especially as you age and your needs change.
And using strategies like tax loss harvesting or, rebalancing your portfolio can also help save on taxes, right?
Absolutely. Taking advantage of losses to offset gains can minimize your tax burden, which is vital when you're living on a fixed income in retirement.
It's like having a toolkit of strategies at your disposal. But what are some common pitfalls people should watch out for?
Well, one major pitfall is failing to plan for healthcare costs. Many people underestimate how much they'll need for medical expenses in retirement, which can really eat into your savings.
And then there's the risk of being overly aggressive with investments. It's tempting to chase high returns, but that can expose you to more risk than you can afford in retirement.
Exactly. And not having a clear withdrawal strategy can lead to running out of money too soon. It's all about balance and making informed choices.
Wow, I think we've covered a lot today. This really gives listeners a lot to think about in their retirement planning journey.
So Emily, one of the most common pitfalls I see when people are planning for retirement is the sequence of returns risk. A lot of folks don't realize how the order of their investment returns can impact their withdrawals.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Can you break that down a bit? What does that actually mean for someone who's retired?
Of course. So let's say you retire just before a market downturn. If you start withdrawing funds during that time, you're selling your investments at a loss, which can really hurt your portfolio's long-term health. Conversely, if you experience strong returns early in retirement, it can set you up for a more comfortable financial future.
That makes sense. I bet many people don't think about that when they're planning their withdrawals, right?
Exactly. I once worked with a couple, let's call them Tom and Lisa. They retired in 2007, just before the financial crisis. They had a solid plan, but they weren't prepared for the market dip. They started withdrawing from their savings, and it really put a strain on their finances. They had to adjust their lifestyle significantly.
Wow, that sounds tough. So what could they have done differently?
Well, if they had built a more diversified portfolio and included some fixed income or cash reserves to draw from during market downturns, it could have buffered them against those losses. It's all about having a strategy that allows you to weather the storms.
Absolutely. And speaking of strategies, what about taxes? I feel like many people overlook how taxes will impact their withdrawals.
You're right. A common mistake is not considering the tax implications of withdrawing from retirement accounts. For instance, taking money from a 401k or traditional IRA can push you into a higher tax bracket. If you're not careful, you could end up paying more in taxes than necessary.
That's a huge consideration. Do you have an example of someone who faced that issue?
Sure. There was a client. Let's call her Sarah. She retired and began withdrawing from her traditional IRA without factoring in her other income sources. When tax season came around, she was shocked to find out she owed significantly more than expected. It really put a damper on her retirement plans.
That must have been frustrating for her. What do you suggest to avoid that?
Planning ahead is key. It's essential to work with a financial advisor to create a withdrawal strategy that minimizes your tax burden. Sometimes, it can be beneficial to withdraw from different accounts in a way that keeps you in a lower tax bracket.
Great advice. Now let's talk about healthcare and longevity. That's another area where people often underestimate their needs, right?
Yes, definitely. Healthcare can be one of the biggest expenses in retirement, and many people don't account for rising costs or the potential need for long-term care. I've seen individuals who thought their savings would last, but they ended up facing unexpected medical bills.
Can you share a story about that?
Sure. There was a gentleman, let's call him Frank. He had a solid retirement plan, but he didn't consider how long he might live or the healthcare costs that could arise. When he was diagnosed with a chronic illness, he found himself depleting his savings much faster than he anticipated. He had to sell his home and downsize, which was really difficult for him.
That's a tough situation. How can someone prepare for that kind of unpredictability?
Planning for healthcare costs is crucial. I always recommend looking into long-term care insurance and having a savings buffer, specifically for medical expenses. It's also wise to stay informed about Medicare and what it covers, so there are no surprises.
That's really helpful. Now, let's talk about asset allocation. It seems like a lot of people don't get that right either.
Right. Many retirees tend to become overly conservative with their investments too quickly. They believe that as they age, they should move everything to cash or bonds, but that can expose them to inflation risk. A balanced approach is important.
Do you have a real-life example of that?
Absolutely. I worked with a couple, let's call them Mark and Julie. They moved almost all their assets into fixed income investments after retiring. While it felt safe, they didn't account for inflation. Over the years, their purchasing power diminished significantly, and they struggled to maintain their lifestyle.
So what should they have done differently?
They should have kept a portion of their investments in equities or other growth-oriented assets, even in retirement. It's about striking that balance between safety and growth to ensure their money lasts.
That's such a great point. And what about Social Security? I've heard that people often start claiming benefits too early.
Yes, claiming Social Security too early can be a costly mistake. The longer you wait to claim, the higher your benefit will be. For many, waiting until full retirement age or even age 70 can make a huge difference in the lifetime benefits they receive.
Any stories around that?
Definitely. I had a client, let's call her Ellen, who claimed her benefits at 62 because she thought she needed the money. She didn't realize that her monthly benefit would be significantly lower than if she had waited. It really impacted her long-term financial stability.
That's a lesson learned the hard way. How can someone avoid making that mistake?
It's essential to look at your overall financial picture. Consider your health, your other income sources, and your need for cash flow. Running the numbers with a financial advisor can help you determine the best time to claim.
So many factors to consider. What are some red flags people should look out for in their retirement planning?
Well, if you're feeling anxious about your financial future, or if you find yourself constantly worrying about money, that's a sign you may need to reevaluate your plan. Also, if you're unsure about your investment strategy or don't have a clear withdrawal plan, those are red flags too.
That's really insightful. It seems like being proactive is key.
Absolutely. The earlier you start planning and adjusting your strategy, the better off you'll be. And remember, it's never too late to make changes to improve your situation.
Such valuable advice, David. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground today. What do you think are the next steps someone should take if they recognize these pitfalls in their own planning?
I'd suggest reaching out to a financial advisor who specializes in retirement planning. They can help you assess your current situation, identify any gaps, and create a customized plan to address those issues. It's about being proactive and taking control of your financial future.
That's a perfect way to wrap it up. Thanks, David, for sharing your insights today. I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot about how to protect their assets in retirement.
Always a pleasure, Emily. Let's keep the conversation going in future episodes.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to chatting with you next time.
So now that we've talked about protecting your assets, let's dive into some immediate steps that you can take right now.
Yeah, I love that idea. What's the first thing folks should do?
Well, a great starting point is to review your current financial situation. You can use some really handy retirement calculators from companies like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab. They offer tools that help you assess your savings and project your retirement income.
That's super helpful. Those calculators can really paint a clear picture, right?
Exactly. And don't forget about the Social Security Administration's website, ssa.gov. It's an excellent resource for understanding your benefits and how they fit into your overall retirement plan.
Oh, for sure. It's so important to know what you're entitled to. What about tax considerations?
Good point. You might want to look into tax software or even consult with a tax professional. Understanding your tax liability can help you make better decisions about withdrawals and investments.
Right, and being proactive about taxes can save you a lot in the long run.
Absolutely. Another useful tool is financial planning apps. There are many out there, like Mint or Personal Capital, that can help you track your spending and investments.
Those apps make budgeting so much easier. They really keep you accountable.
They do, and if you're looking for something more comprehensive, you could consider working with a financial planner. It's never too late to improve your plan, and having a professional's guidance can really make a difference.
That's a good reminder. Even if you've been managing your own finances for years, it might be worth it to get a second opinion.
Definitely. Now let's talk about some habits that can really pay off. I suggest setting aside time each quarter to review your portfolio. It doesn't have to be extensive. Just a quick check-in to see how things are performing.
I like that. Just a little bit of time can lead to big changes.
Exactly. And while you're reviewing, run those retirement projections. See if you're on track to meet your goals or if adjustments are needed.
Such a good idea. It's like checking the map before you hit the road.
Right? And don't underestimate the power of continuous learning. There are some fantastic books and podcasts out there focused on retirement planning.
Oh, for sure. Any recommendations?
Well, I really like The Boglehead's Guide to Retirement Planning. It's full of practical tips. And for podcasts, ChooseFI is great for learning about financial independence and smart investing.
I've heard about those, and they're so accessible too. You can listen while you're out for a walk or doing chores.
Exactly. It's all about incorporating learning into your daily life.
And speaking of habits, what about setting specific goals?
Yes, setting clear, achievable goals is crucial. Maybe start with a target amount you want to save each month, or aim to pay down a certain percentage of your debt.
Those are great goals. They feel tangible and motivating.
They really are. And don't forget about estate planning either. Having a solid will and understanding how to protect your assets can go a long way in safeguarding your legacy.
Such an important aspect that people often overlook. It's not just about today, but also about what you leave behind.
Exactly. And if you haven't already, consider setting up a trust. It can be a powerful tool for asset protection.
Wow, so many actionable steps. It's kind of exciting to think about all the ways you can strengthen your retirement plan.
It really is. And remember, even if you feel behind, it's never too late to start making changes.
That's such a reassuring thought. Each step, no matter how small, gets you closer to where you want to be.
Absolutely. So with these tools in your pocket, you're ready to strengthen your retirement plan. Let's recap what we've covered today. Well, Emily, as we wrap up, there were some really important points we covered today about protecting assets from lawsuits in retirement.
Absolutely, David. One key takeaway is the importance of understanding how different types of assets are treated legally. Like, knowing which ones are more vulnerable to claims and which are protected.
Right, and we also talked about the value of setting up trusts. They can be a great way to shield your assets from potential lawsuits, while also allowing you to maintain control over them.
And let's not forget about liability insurance. It's a crucial layer of protection that many people overlook. Having adequate coverage can really make a difference in a lawsuit situation.
Exactly. Plus, we discussed the significance of keeping your financial records organized. That way, if any legal issues arise, you have everything documented and ready to go.
So true. And finally, we touched on the need for a solid estate plan, ensuring that your wishes are honored while also protecting your wealth for future generations.
Well said, Emily. It's all about being proactive, right? Building and protecting your retirement wealth doesn't just happen. It requires intentional planning and action.
Yeah, and speaking of action, if you found today's episode helpful, we'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's either planning for retirement or already in it.
And please, drop us a comment with your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have. We really enjoy hearing from you.
Next time, we'll dive into a topic that's super relevant for many folks: how to plan retirement with a regular income. It's going to be a great discussion.
Definitely something to look forward to.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you being a part of our community.
Take care, everyone, and remember to stay proactive about your retirement planning.
Bye for now.